Hey everyone, my guest today, Mindy Ho, a general surgeon and physician coach, is with us. Mindy was with me at the 2025 American College of Surgeons Clinical Congress in Chicago. Welcome, Mindy.
Hi, Jeff. It's good to see you again.
It's great to see you, and it's so fun to see your passion and energy in coaching and talking with a lot of other surgeons. It was just a blast watching you do your thing and helping people learn about coaching.
Yeah, I had a great time. I think our booth is was creative and it drawed a lot of attention. And so if people haven't had a chance to check that out, they should see what you guys all built.
Well, and you were a key part of it, but you had a lot of conversations in our talks afterwards. You mentioned that there seemed to be some common themes, and thought that you would. It sounded like you were excited to share some of the themes that you learned from the Congress.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good opportunity to kind of summarize the questions that we frequently would receive as people stop by at the booth. And I had a great time meeting, established surgeons, but also medical students and residents in training. So it's a fantastic time.
Yeah, it was a big mix. Why don't we jump in with some of those questions and just give us one of them?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest questions that people would have coming up was, well, what's the difference between coaching and mentoring? We had a little display that showed what coaching is not, right? So coaching is not therapy, it's not counseling, it's not mentoring. And then on the flip side of that display was sort of a word cloud of what coaching is. But the conversations kind of stemmed from, I would say that both coaching and mentoring are very valuable. And many times people use the two words interchangeably, but they function differently. So, for example, this is what I would tell a lot of the people who stop by is, say you have a goal, right? If you wanted to, achieve a certain goal in your specialty or in your career, say you wanted to be a pediatric trauma surgeon, you would probably in an academic setting or whatnot, you would probably seek out a pediatric trauma surgeon who had a successful practice in an academic setting and find somebody who typically has walked that path to be your mentor. And that mentor can then offer their personal experiences, their strategic connections, and advise on what the important steps were that they personally took.
And so, as you alluded to, that is a valuable relationship. People struggle, though, with finding a mentor that has that and kind of matches that personality, right? And so it's a bit of a scramble. Certainly it's valuable. But then how is coaching different than that?
Yeah. So a coach is more likely to talk to the individual, ask questions, use reflections and accountability to help him or her generate their own insights, understand their own values, their own lifestyles, their own passions. And so a coach doesn't have to have walked that path. And I would almost argue that it's better that a coach hasn't because then they don't bring in their personal experiences into those conversations and they can really be objective in their sessions with the coachee to identify what's truly important to that individual.
And it sounds like a great coach could coach almost anyone, but just sharing that peer experience of being a physician or surgeon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the advantage of surgeon masters and having surgeons or physicians as coaches is that we live that life, right? So the advantage and the peer of those peer-to-peer conversations is you don't have to explain to your coach. You don't have to start from the very beginning of, okay, this is what I had to do to get to where I am today or to become a physician. This is what my lifestyle is like. You don't have to explain what call means or what, an M&M is. You don't have to explain those intrinsic pieces of what we live day to day in healthcare, but you also don't have to be the same type of physician. You don't have to be in the same stage of your career. You don't have to be the same type of institution.
And I love that, all those, but especially this stage in the career, that you can be working with a coach and eliminate a lot of that hierarchy. That person's really just there to be of value to the client or coachee.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes, I think you and I have talked about where sometimes the mentors have an investment into that relationship. Whether you're mentoring someone to bring into your department or to eventually, mentor that person to take over your job, there's a little bit of a personal investment that can be there. And from a coaching standpoint, your coach is fully invested on your success. There's no personal gain for the coach other than it brings us joy to help, our peers and to help them succeed. One thing that I would notice is we would have several groups of, I would say, staff physicians who brought along their residents or medical students, and they were their mentors. And you could clearly see that the medical students and the residents looked up to these individual surgeons. And they would stop and they would talk to us, and then they would walk away and they would say, well, I'm already a mentor and I'm already a coach. And which is fantastic, right? I think if you can have a mentor who has coaching skills and is able to separate the two, I mean, you've got a tremendous winner there, right? It's just that sometimes it's hard to separate the two.
Absolutely. And another really common question that I think we experienced was, whether this is something that has to be done in person or whether it's virtual and so on.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is coach specific. For me, I always enjoy being able to have face to face and have that human to human connection. But I don't believe that coaching has to be done one way or another, right? And specifically in our field of healthcare, people are busy. And so making time for one on one, even if you were in the same local area, is challenging enough. So the benefits of, Surgeon Masters is that our coaches are located in all different areas, and we're able to offer both virtual and in person if that's feasible sessions. And so this really allows for convenience and accessibility to more coaches and to find the best fit for clients.
Absolutely. And I know some of my clients prefer all telephone, some prefer the visual of a Zoom or similar video conference, and some it's a blend of both, factoring in issues like convenience and the added value, right? And including in person, right? And as you said, that sometimes is the most powerful, but it's amazing how powerful our coaching experiences have been virtually. What other questions came up while you were there with me in Chicago?
We saw a lot of established surgeons at ACS, but what really caught my attention was the number of medical students and residents who would pause at the booth and, come and talk to us. And, we weren't giving away pens or any goodies or anything like that. So they really just came for the sheer conversation and to learn about what coaching was. And their biggest question is, well, I'm just a medical student or I'm just a resident. So maybe one day down the road, coaching would be beneficial. Or the question would be, can I have a coach now? And the answer is 100% yes, right? Because as we get further along into our training and you become busy in your practices, it becomes more automatic to start thinking of your patients first, to focus on risk mitigation. And then slowly but surely, many of us kind of forget to think about ourselves, forget to think about what fulfills us, forget to think about our well being and our happiness. And so, that old paradigm of thinking is contributing to some higher burnout rates. We're seeing some improvement, but it's still a pretty significant burnout rate. AMA's 2024 survey was still about 45% burnout rate. That's half of our workforce, right? And so we're seeing physicians leave medicine earlier in their careers. So I personally think that coaching is a great strategy for maintaining lifelong growth and learning. And it's equally valuable, if perhaps not more valuable, to introduce it early on to these trainees' careers.
Yeah, it creates a great foundational habit. And, we see it almost throughout the career, like people trying to figure out the best time to start coaching or do coaching. And it's never too early and it's really never too late. Like I'm a classic example of it not being too late because I didn't get real true coaching until pretty late into my career. But yeah, especially for the medical students and residents, whatever opportunities they might be able to get for coaching, and many of the Surgeon Masters coaches are excited about bringing this opportunity to medical students and residents.
Yeah. And I almost wonder if there's, at ACS, all the medical students and the residents were already sort of going down that path of surgery, right? But if you think about, well, I don't know about how early on in your career in medical school you decided on orthopedics, but I made some shifts in my 4 years there. And so if I think about medical students going through that process of, okay, what kind of specialty do I want to go into? Do I want to dedicate the rest of my life to? I mean, that can be a very, very stressful decision to make. And so I think there would be some benefit for coaching for those individuals who are trying to kind of process who they are as individuals, how they see their life in the future, and what specialty and subspecialty most aligns with their values and their lifestyle. And then, as you said, to build that habit of self reflection and self care throughout the process of training.
I love how you said that. I think they're clearly eager for advice, but I think the coaching model is even more effective for them because they get all that advice and don't know how to process it. Whereas a coaching conversation is really directed at seeing all the information that they're learning and
Right.
matching it to their personality, their values, their beliefs, etc.
Yeah.
Awesome. What else came up while we were there at the booth, having fun,
Yeah.
and sometimes taking some pictures of those of to leverage that?
Yeah. Well, I think in lines of what we've been talking about, one of the questions was, well, how does coaching really work? What does that process look like? How long is it, et cetera? And the answer is really, it kind of depends on the client and their needs. In general, I'd say we recommend about 6 sessions to get started with a new coach. It takes a little bit of time to get comfortable with the idea of coaching. If that's not something that the coachee is familiar with, there needs to be a little bit of time to build that rapport and that trust so that you can be in that safe space and have those conversations because it can be a very vulnerable process. And so it takes a little bit of time to figure out, well, what's bothering you? What are the pain points? What are the challenges? And not everybody comes to coaching knowing how to articulate those. Sometimes people come to coaching with, I know something doesn't feel right. But what is it
Yeah,
that doesn't feel right?
yeah. There's definitely. I mean, again, I'm trying to figure out if there's another way to phrase it, but it's just that dynamic of I think people hope, and even coaches hope that in the first couple of coaching sessions, you're already building, helping the client build insights or direction or steps. But a lot of times it's really just establishing a lot of foundation in understanding of a rhythm or dynamic that you get between each other to then grow upon. And then it can go gangbusters or it can even be ebb and flow where you'll have a period of time where there's a lot of it feels like for the client a lot of progress and other times where it's more exploration and kind of inquisition, curiosity, all those sort of things, right?
Right. And so, it's very customized to the individual themselves. Is that 6 sessions enough to get them to where they wanted to be? Do they feel a substantial, improvement or impact in their life and have other areas that they want to work through using the coaching model? Do they take a break and run with what they've sort of brought clarity to? and then come back intermittently. So I think there's a lot of flexibility there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like both of us and a lot of our coaches have similar experience. And you gain the excitement of just noticing how it's very different kind of conversations than those that you might have with your local peers or peers across the country where you're comparing notes or even working with great colleagues that, you're talking about stuff. It's a very different conversation that I think when people experience it, they notice the tremendous value of those conversations.
Yeah.
Any other so in the way it works, I mean, there's even some of our coaches that enjoy doing group coaching. Usually it's one-on-one. Usually those conversations are 30 to 60 minutes in duration and then repeated throughout that client's calendar if it's a couple times a month or monthly. Any other aspects of the dynamics that you kind of shared with people that were stopping by asking questions about how coaching works?
I think you covered it all, but I think the key message to take away is that it's very personalized. It's meeting the client where they are and meeting their needs, whether that's time constrained, whether that's their preferential mode of communication, telephone, virtual, video, how in person, but getting them comfortable with the idea of coaching so that they can be vulnerable, right? Vulnerable to their thoughts and their reflections, because that's the hard part.
Yep. You mentioned vulnerability, and I would agree. We've been doing it. We've been through it, like as clients as well. I would also, highlight a little bit that they don't have to be so vulnerable that a client feels concerned or at risk, right? The coaching relationship is very confidential, but as you notice that the conversation's effectiveness for the client improves when they're truly having an open, unguarded conversation, but knowing that it's still as safe as if it was going on in their head. Uh,
Yes.
that's super valuable to their growth and learning about next steps and things of how to progress.
Yes. Yes. And I don't think I used the wrong word with vulnerability,
Oh,
because
you
I
didn't
think
use
that really
vulnerability.
is truly, but I don't want to scare people away who right, who have not been in that type of a situation. But it's really because, I joked with people who would come through the who would come through the booth, and I think you commented on it or made fun of it, is that it's not always going to be like, great job, and you're awesome, and all happiness during that session. We're going to ask some tough questions, and some of those questions either don't have answers yet or don't have answers that you like. And so that's the piece of the vulnerability that comes forward during those sessions, right? Is being able to feel safe enough in your relationship with the coach to have those breakthroughs.
Very well said. I have been doing this for a while, so sometimes I'm jealous when other coaches can explain things better than I do. You do a great job. So yeah, we had people coming by asking a lot about coaching, but I think we had people intrigued and excited because there are people in various parts of the career. There are a lot saying either that they already do something like it, but we want to get more involved on the side of becoming a coach, right?
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up to you, is that there were people who are familiar with coaching, and they in some ways have practiced it, but now they want more training, or they want to know how to be better at it or how to continue their growth as a coach. And so that's the piece here, is that Surgeon Masters also offers a physician coach training program, and it's easy to use with online modules. There's practice coaching sessions, which I think you lead those typically.
Often now, yeah, we also have Carla Smith doing a lot, and then we also utilize coaches through various phases of the training that will be actively involved in sharing. It's kind of that everyone's learning concept.
Yeah. And they complete the program with a certification at the end. Is that right?
Yeah. So they'll get credit hours for the duration of their training. And then because some of the folks coming to learn about coach training are just wanting those advanced coaching skills and use them in their existing leadership positions or even just using them with how they interact with patients, because you and I can appreciate how valuable that can be.
Yes.
But it's some are with the goal or destination of becoming a certified professional coach. And our training is part of the path of becoming a certified professional coach.
Yeah. That's amazing. So, we can provide coaching for anyone along the path of healthcare and medicine. And then you can also train coaches or train individuals passionate about coaching to become coaches. So, certified coaches.
Yeah. And I think, we might share this view, and it's probably why you've decided to work with Surgeon Masters, but we really want to just spread coaching and the coaching experience through the healthcare culture because it's a much more supportive, while engaging with some of those challenging questions, it's much more supportive of leveraging strengths, leveraging what we do well, and then filling in all those little gaps or opportunities for doing something differently in a way that brings more fulfillment and career satisfaction, and ultimately brings, I think, higher quality care to the patients.
Agreed.
Well, thanks for sharing many of your insights in the conversations you had at the booth, and we look forward to sharing this with many of the folks in our network.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on here.
We'll have you back. Thanks again, Dr.
All right.
Mindy Ho.